The skies darkened as the massive ships of the Vril Collective entered Earth's atmosphere. Lieutenant Commander Park Ji-ho watched from the underground command center of the United Earth Defense Force. His superiors had anticipated this day for decades. "Sir, alien vessels are positioning themselves over major cities," reported Captain Kim Hana, sliding a tablet across the table. Ji-ho nodded, "And they think we're unprepared. The observation satellites we placed near their home system gave us a 40-year head start," Hana said with a slight smile. "They have no idea." Their team had been training for this moment since the first intercepted Vril transmissions. While the public remained oblivious, the world's governments had united against this common threat, developing weapons specifically designed to counter alien technology. "Team Phantom is ready for deployment," Ji-ho announced, checking his specialized gear. Their mission: infiltrate the command ship that had landed in the mountains of Gangwon Province. As they approached the alien vessel under cover of night, Ji-ho thought about how confident these invaders must feel. They had no idea they'd been hunted long before they arrived. The transport vehicle stopped at the edge of the forest. Ji-ho and his 5-person team moved silently through the trees. They wore black armor that blocked heat signatures. Each carried weapons made from technology taken from a crashed Vril scout ship decades ago. "Command, we have visual on the target," Ji-ho whispered into his comm. The alien ship was huge and dark against the night sky. Strange lights pulsed along its hull. "Remember the plan," Ji-ho told his team. "We get in, place the tracking devices, and get out. No contact with the enemy unless absolutely necessary." Team member Song Gil nodded. "Just like the simulations." But they all knew this was no simulation. The fate of Earth might depend on what they learned tonight. They reached the edge of the clearing. The ship had landed in a perfect circle of scorched Earth. 2 Vril stood guard at what looked like an entrance. The aliens were tall and thin with gray skin. They had 4 arms and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. "Wait for my signal," Ji-ho said, raising his hand. He pressed a button on his wrist device. A small drone launched from his backpack and flew high above them. When it was directly over the ship, it released an electromagnetic pulse. The lights on the ship flickered and went out. "Now," Ji-ho commanded. They sprinted across the open ground. The confused guards raised their weapons too late. 2 silent shots from Hana's rifle dropped them before they could alert others. "We have 4 minutes before their systems reboot," tech specialist Yoon Jae said, checking his device. "Doors opening." The team slipped inside the ship. The air was thick and smelled strange. The walls pulsed with a faint blue light. "Split up," Ji-ho ordered. "Place the trackers as planned. Meet back here in 3 minutes." Ji-ho and Hana took the main corridor. They moved quickly, placing tiny tracking devices in hidden corners. The devices would not only track the ship's movements, but also record all communications and scan the ship's technology. "Ji-ho," Hana whispered. "Look at this," she pointed to a holographic display showing Earth. Red dots marked major cities, but the display also showed underground facilities that no one but the highest levels of government should have known about. "They have intel on our defenses," Ji-ho said, his stomach dropping. "But how?" A sound came from around the corner. Ji-ho pulled Hana into a recess in the wall just as 3 Vril walked past. The aliens were talking in their clicking language. "We need to warn command," Ji-ho said once they had passed. "Someone has betrayed us." They continued placing trackers, moving deeper into the ship. In one room, they found containers filled with strange liquids. In another, what looked like weapons bigger than anything they had seen before. "Time's up," came Yoon Jae's voice over the comm. "Systems are rebooting." The team rushed back to the entrance. As they reached it, alarms began to sound. "We've been detected," Song-Gil said. "Move," Ji-ho ordered. They burst out of the ship and ran for the trees. Behind them, Vril soldiers poured out of the ship. Energy weapons fired, lighting up the night. "Command. Extraction needed now," Ji-ho shouted into his comm. They reached the tree line as a transport aircraft appeared overhead, hovering low enough for them to jump aboard. As the transport pulled away, Ji-ho looked back at the alien ship. The mission was a success, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. If the Vril knew about Earth's secret defenses, what else did they know? And more importantly, who had told them? The Vril established their main base in the Australian outback, believing the remote location would keep them hidden. They couldn't have been more wrong. Their energy signatures match our predictions exactly, said Dr. Lee Soo-jin, the head of weapons development, as she handed Ji-ho a rifle unlike any conventional weapon. This will disrupt their neural networks. Director Choi Tae-woo addressed the assembled strike team. 38 years ago, one of their scout ships crashed in Mongolia. Everything we know about them, everything we've built to fight them, came from that crash. They believe they're the predators. We're about to show them otherwise. That night, Ji-ho's team infiltrated the alien base with terrifying efficiency. Their actions were precise, clinical, the result of generations of preparation. They're harvesting biological samples, Hana reported after hacking into a Vril terminal. They want Earth's biodiversity, not just territory. As they extracted with their intelligence, an alarm finally sounded. Too late. The hunters had already come, and gone. The Australian outback spread vast and red under the afternoon sun. From the air, the Vril base looked like a massive metal flower blooming in the desert. 6 petal-shaped buildings surrounded a central dome. Strange energy fields shimmered around the perimeter. In the UEDF's forward command post, hidden in an abandoned mining facility 50 kilometers away, Ji-ho studied the holographic map of the alien base. So this is where they're processing everything they've collected, he said. Dr. Lee nodded, adjusting her glasses. Plants, animals, soil samples. They've been taking specimens from every continent. She handed each team member a weapon that looked more like a strange musical instrument than a gun. Its barrel glowed with a soft blue light. The Vril's nervous system works on frequencies we learned to disrupt, she explained. 1 shot will paralyze them for 6 minutes. 2 shots will kill. Ji-ho tested the weight of the weapon. And they don't have protection against this? They don't even know we have their technology, Dr. Lee said with a small smile. That's our advantage. Director Choi entered the room. His face looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. The transport leaves in 1 hour. This mission is critical. We need to know exactly what they're doing with those biological samples. The team suited up in adaptive camouflage gear that changed color to match their surroundings. Each member carried specialized equipment, Hana with her hacking devices, Song-gil with explosives, Yoon-jae with sensor equipment, and 2 new members, Kim Won with medical gear and Park Young with communications tech. Their transport flew low over the desert using canyons to hide from Vril scanners. They landed 10 kilometers from the base and continued on foot as night fell. Temperature dropping, Yoon-jae reported. Good for us. Their heat sensors work poorly in cold conditions. They reached the edge of the energy field. Yoon-jae deployed a small device that created a temporary gap. 1 by 1, they slipped through. Inside the perimeter, they split into 2 teams. Ji-ho, Hana, and Young headed for the central dome. Gil, Jae, and Won moved toward the southern petal structure. Remember, Ji-ho said over the comm, we're here to gather intelligence, not to engage. Use your weapons only if necessary. The inside of the base was eerily beautiful. The walls pulsed with organic light patterns. Everything seemed alive, from the floors to the ceiling. Ji-ho's team moved silently through corridors that curved like arteries. They passed rooms where Vril scientists worked over strange equipment. In one large chamber, they saw hundreds of containers filled with plants, insects, and small animals. Look at this, Young whispered, pointing to a room where Vril were experimenting on Earth bacteria. The aliens were injecting the samples with a glowing substance. Record everything, Ji-ho ordered. They reached the central control room. Hana quickly attached her device to a terminal. I'm in their system, she said after a few minutes. Downloading their research data now. Ji-ho watched the door, while Young scanned the room for useful technology. Ji-ho, Hana said suddenly, her voice tense. They're not just collecting samples. They're modifying Earth organisms to survive on their homeworld. They're planning to take everything, our plants, animals, microbes, and transplant them. Biotheft on a planetary scale, Jiho said. Young picked up a small device from a table. Look at this. It's some kind of terraforming tech. The other team reported similar findings. They had discovered rooms full of Earth soil being treated with alien compounds. Time to go, Jiho ordered. We have what we need. They began their retreat, moving as silently as they had entered. They were nearly at the energy field when a Vril scientist spotted them. The alien raised an alarm before Jiho could fire. Run, Jiho shouted. They sprinted for the gap in the field. Behind them, Vril soldiers poured from the buildings. Energy weapons fired, scorching the ground around them. They made it through the field just as it stabilized behind them. Their transport was waiting, engines hot. As they flew away, Jiho looked back at the alien base, now fully illuminated and on high alert. They know we were there, Hana said. But they don't know what we learned. Jiho nodded grimly. And what we learned changes everything. More Vril ships arrived daily, but their invasion was faltering before it truly began. Their communication systems failed mysteriously. Navigation systems directed their troops into ambushes. Supply lines disappeared. Their command structure is fracturing, Jiho reported as his team monitored intercepted alien communications. They can't understand how we're always one step ahead. In a daring raid, they captured a high-ranking Vril officer named Mitek. Under interrogation, the truth emerged. The Vril were refugees, their home system destroyed by a stellar event. They needed Earth not just for resources, but for survival. There's something else, Hana said, reviewing the prisoner's testimony. They're being pursued by another species called the Doru, and the Doru have already contacted Earth governments. Jiho confronted Director Choi. You made a deal with another alien race? We did what was necessary, Choi replied coldly. The enemy of our enemy provided us with the means to defend ourselves. The Vril are caught between hammer and anvil, and we are both. Rain fell heavily outside the underground command center. Inside, Jiho and his team watched a wall of screens showing Vril ships across the globe. One by one, red warning lights appeared on many of the ships. Another communication system failure, Yoon-jae reported. That's the 5th today. And look, here, Song-gil added, pointing to a screen showing Vril ground forces in Brazil. They're walking right into the trap we set last week. Jiho nodded with grim satisfaction. The digital virus they had planted in the Australian base was working perfectly. It corrupted navigation data, scrambled communications, and fed false information to Vril commanders. They still don't realize it's not equipment failure, Hana said. They keep trying to fix what isn't broken. For 3 weeks, the Vril invasion had stalled. What should have been a swift conquest had become a confused mess. Vril ships fired on each other by mistake. Ground troops got lost in simple terrain. Supply ships landed in the wrong places. We need more, Director Choi said, entering the room. We need to understand their full plan. Team Phantom has a new mission. The mission was simple but dangerous. Capture a high-ranking Vril officer. Intelligence had located the quarters of a commander named Mitek in the Tokyo ship. That night, Jiho's team deployed to the floating vessel, using stealth helicopters and climbing gear. The ship hovered just 200 meters above the city. Security is tight after our Australian raid, Song-gil whispered as they reached the outer hull. They've doubled guards, but they still can't detect our stealth tech, Jiho replied, activating a cutting tool that silently melted through the ship's skin. They slipped inside and moved through dark corridors. 2 Vril guards fell silently to their neural disruptors. They reached Mitek's quarters and found the tall, 4-armed officer working at a console. Before he could react, they fired. The neural disruptor froze him in place. They quickly secured him in a special containment suit and began their retreat. Alarms sounded when they were halfway to the exit. They've discovered he's missing, Hana said. New plan, Jiho ordered. Deployment point 3. They changed direction, heading for a different part of the hull. When they reached it, Jiho activated a beacon. Seconds later, the hull beside them exploded inward. A UEDF extraction vehicle hovered outside the new hole, its ramp extended. Go! Jiho shouted. They jumped aboard with their prisoner as Vril energy weapons fired around them. The vehicle pulled away and accelerated into the clouds. Back at the command center, Maytek was placed in a special interrogation room. The neural disruptor wore off and the Vril commander found himself facing Ji-Ho and Director Choi. "You will learn nothing from me," Maytek said in perfect English. "We already know more than you think," Ji-Ho replied. "We know your home system was destroyed. We know you need Earth for your people to survive." Maytek's eyes widened slightly. For hours, they questioned him. Slowly, the full truth emerged. The Vril's sun had exploded without warning. They had fled with what remained of their civilization, searching for a new home. Earth was perfect, the right gravity, atmosphere, and biological diversity they needed. "We had no choice," Maytek finally said, his voice tired. "Billions of my people died. The rest wait in deep space in sleep ships." Then came the most startling revelation. "The stellar event was no accident," Maytek said. "Our sun was destabilized by the Doru. They hunt us across the stars. They will not stop until we are extinct." Ji-Ho looked at Director Choi, who showed no surprise at this information. Later, Ji-Ho confronted him in his office. "You knew about the Doru. You've been in contact with them." Choi didn't deny it. "They reached out to us 30 years ago. They warned us about the Vril and gave us technology to fight them," Ji-Ho said, understanding dawning. "The neural disruptors, the stealth tech, none of it came from the crashed scout ship, did it?" "Some did," Choi said. "But our most advanced weapons are Doru designs." "Why? Didn't you tell us?" Ji-Ho demanded. "Would you have trusted weapons from one alien race to fight another?" Choi asked. "We did what was necessary." "What did the Doru want in return?" Ji-Ho asked. Choi looked out the window at the rain. "The complete elimination of the Vril. They're coming here, Ji-Ho. The Doru fleet will arrive within days." "We're caught in an alien war," Ji-Ho realized. "No," Choi corrected him. "We're winning an alien war. The Vril are trapped between us and the approaching Doru, between hammer and anvil." Ji-Ho looked at the screens showing confused Vril forces around the world. "And we are both." The Vril launched a massive assault against Earth's hidden defense installations. Their desperation made them dangerous. "They've located the orbital defense platform," Hana shouted as alarms blared throughout the command center. "If they disable it before the Doru arrive, we won't let that happen," Ji-Ho said, assembling his team for their most dangerous mission yet. They launched toward the space elevator in Hokkaido, their only access to the orbital defenses. The Vril commander Ekron personally led the attack on the facility. As Ji-Ho fought through alien troops, he realized a shocking truth. Earth intelligence had been feeding the Vril false information for years, manipulating them into this invasion. At this specific time, the Doru needed the Vril concentrated in one location. In Earth orbit, the Doru fleet materialized, sleek, predatory vessels that immediately opened fire on Vril ships. Face to face with Ekron, Ji-Ho saw not a monster, but a desperate leader, trying to save his people. "You were herded here," Ji-Ho told him. "We've been hunting you since before you knew we existed." The sky over Japan turned red with fire. Vril ships descended through clouds of black smoke, their weapons tearing through Earth's air defenses. This was not a careful, planned attack. This was desperation. In the command center, screens flashed with warnings as facilities around the world reported Vril attacks. "They're hitting everything at once," Yoon-jae said, his fingers flying over controls. "Military bases, power plants, communication hubs." Director Choi entered, his face grim. "They know the Doru are coming. They're trying to cripple us before they arrive." An officer rushed in. "Sir, they've discovered the orbital defense platform. 3 Vril cruisers are moving to attack it." Hana pulled up the satellite feed. The massive ring-shaped platform hung in low Earth orbit, its weapons system still powering up. "If they disable it before the Doru arrive," she started. "We won't let that happen," Ji-Ho cut in. He turned to his team. "Suit up. We're going to space. Within 30 minutes, they..." were aboard a hypersonic transport headed for the Hokkaido space elevator, a massive cable stretching from Earth to orbit. It was their only quick access to the defense platform. Vril forces have already landed at the elevator base, Choi informed them over the comm. Their commander, Ekron, is leading the attack personally. Who is Ekron? Ji-ho asked. Metek's superior, more dangerous than any Vril we've faced. The transport dropped them 2 kilometers from the elevator base. Smoke rose from damaged buildings. The elevator itself, a massive structure of carbon nanotubes and steel, rose into the clouds. Approaching. From the east, Ji-ho ordered. They moved through the forest using trees as cover. When they reached the edge, they saw the elevator base swarming with Vril troops. At their center stood a tall figure with 6 arms instead of 4, Ekron. We need to clear a path to the elevator cars, Ji-ho said. Song-gil, can you create a distraction? Gil grinned. One big boom coming up. He crawled away with a pack of explosives. Minutes later, a massive explosion rocked the northern side of the compound. As Vril troops rushed to respond, Ji-ho's team attacked from the east. Their neural disruptors dropped the first wave of aliens, but more kept coming. They fought their way toward the elevator entrance using everything from disruptors to hand-to-hand combat. Hana hacked the elevator controls, bypassing the lockdown. Car is coming down, 2 minutes. Hold this position, Ji-ho ordered as his team formed a defensive circle. Ekron himself approached, wielding a staff crackling with energy. The 6-armed commander moved with frightening speed, knocking aside Kim Won with a casual swing. Ji-ho fired his disruptor, but Ekron dodged. Your weapons are based on our technology, the alien said in a deep voice. Did you think we wouldn't develop countermeasures? They fought across the platform, Ji-ho barely avoiding deadly blows. Behind them, the elevator car arrived. Ji-ho. Now! Hana called. He disengaged and ran for the car. Ekron followed. Both made it inside before the doors closed. The car began its rapid ascent, leaving the battle below. Ji-ho and Ekron faced each other in the small space, both breathing hard. Why attack now? Ji-ho asked, keeping his weapon ready. You must know it's too late. We intercepted communications between your leaders and the Doru, Ekron said. We know we were betrayed. As the elevator rose through the clouds, Ji-ho saw something in the alien's eyes. Not hatred, but resignation. You don't understand what you've done, Ekron said. The Doru will not stop with us. Earth will be next. Ji-ho remembered files he'd seen, communications that didn't make sense. Pieces suddenly clicked together. The false intelligence reports, he said slowly. The leaked defense plans. It wasn't just to trap you. Earth has been manipulating your invasion for years. Why? Ekron demanded. The Doru wanted all Vril forces in one place, Ji-ho realized, horror growing. And we helped them. As if summoned by his words, the sky above them tore open. Through the elevator's glass walls, they watched as strange ships appeared in orbit, angular, predatory vessels that gleamed like black ice. The Doru fleet had arrived. Immediately, they opened fire on Vril ships. No warnings, no demands for surrender, just destruction. The elevator reached the orbital platform. As they stepped out, Ji-ho and Ekron stood side by side, watching the one-sided battle. You were herded here, Ji-ho told him. We've been hunting you since before you knew we existed. Ekron turned to him, all 6 hands empty of weapons. And now we will both pay the price. The combined human and Doru forces surrounded the remaining Vril ships. Total victory was within reach. Yet Ji-ho couldn't shake his conversation with Ekron. Director, he addressed Choi, the Vril are facing extinction. They came here for the same reason we fight them, survival. What are you suggesting? Choi asked sharply. Mars. We've been terraforming it for colonization. We could offer them controlled settlement there instead of annihilation. The debate divided Earth's leadership. The Doru representatives strongly opposed any mercy. In the decisive council meeting, Ji-ho presented evidence that the Doru had manipulated both humanity and the Vril, positioning themselves to eliminate 2 potential rivals at once. We united against an external threat, Ji-ho argued. It changed us. made former enemies allies. Perhaps this is another such opportunity. In a tense orbital conference, Ekron faced an impossible choice between pride and the survival of his species. The terms were strict: limited territory on Mars, technological disarmament, and reparations for damage to Earth. "We accept," Ekron finally said. As the first Vril settlers arrived on Mars under heavy surveillance, Jiho stood watching from an observation deck. "Do you think this peace will last?" Hana asked, joining him. "I don't know," Jiho admitted. "But today we demonstrated something important to the galaxy. Humans shouldn't be underestimated. We were hunting our invaders long before they knew we existed." Across the stars, other civilizations took notice. Humanity had emerged as a force to be approached with caution, a species capable of turning predators into prey. The orbital defense platform hummed with activity. Through its massive windows, Jiho watched as Doru ships surrounded the last pocket of Vril resistance. The battle had lasted 3 days. Now, only 7 Vril ships remained, backed against Earth's atmosphere with nowhere to run. "The Doru commander is requesting permission to finish them," an officer reported. Director Choi nodded. "Give them the go-ahead." "No." Jiho stepped forward. The past days had given him time to study the data they'd captured from both alien races. "Director, we need to talk privately." In Choi's office, Jiho laid out what he had learned. The Doru had not been truthful. They were not protecting other species from the Vril. They were systematically eliminating potential rivals. The Vril were not their first victims. "Look at this." Jiho showed Choi images from Vril historical records. Their sun was artificially destabilized. The Doru have done this before to at least 3 other civilizations. "Even if that's true," Choi said, "the Vril invaded us. They've killed thousands of humans." "Because they had no choice," Jiho argued. "Director, the Vril are facing extinction. They came here for the same reason we fight them: survival." "What are you suggesting?" Choi asked sharply. "Mars. We've been terraforming it for colonization. We could offer them controlled settlement there instead of annihilation." Choi laughed without humor. "The Doru would never allow it, which should tell us everything we need to know about their true intentions," Jiho replied. The debate spread through Earth's leadership. Some saw an opportunity for peace. Others wanted revenge for the invasion. The Doru representatives were strongly opposed to any mercy for the Vril. "They cannot be trusted," the Doru ambassador said, his translucent skin glowing with anger. "They must be eliminated completely." In the decisive United Earth Council meeting, Jiho presented all his evidence. He showed how the Doru had manipulated both humanity and the Vril for decades, positioning themselves to eliminate 2 potential rivals at once. "First, they help us fight the Vril," Jiho explained. "Then, when we're weakened, they'll find a reason to turn on us. This is their pattern." He played a recording from his confrontation with Ekron on the space elevator. The Vril commander's warning about the Doru's true nature echoed through the chamber. "We united against an external threat," Jiho argued, looking at the representatives of nations that had once been enemies. "It changed us, made former enemies allies. Perhaps this is another such opportunity." The debate lasted hours. Finally, Earth made its decision. They would offer the remaining Vril a choice: controlled settlement on Mars or continued war against both humans and Doru. The Doru were furious. "If you protect our enemy, you become our enemy," their ambassador threatened. "Then perhaps you should reconsider who your enemies are," Choi replied coolly. Earth's orbital defenses, now fully operational, made the implied threat clear. A tense conference was arranged on the orbital platform. Ekron represented the Vril. Jiho and Choi spoke for Earth. The Doru refused to attend. The terms were strict: limited territory on Mars, complete technological disarmament except for survival needs, and reparations for damage to Earth. The Vril would be closely monitored for at least 50 years. Ekron looked out at his 7 remaining ships packed with the last survivors of his species. "You understand the Doru will not stop," he said. "They will come for you next." "We'll face that together," Jiho replied, "if that time comes." Ekron was silent for a long moment. Pride warred with survival. Finally, he lowered all 6 of his arms in the vril gesture of acceptance. "We accept," he said. 3 months later, Jiho stood on the observation deck of the Mars Colonial Station. Below, the first vril settlement was taking shape in a terraformed valley. Earth forces monitored everything, but so far the agreement was holding. The Doru fleet had withdrawn to the edge of the solar system. They maintained that humans had made a terrible mistake, but faced with Earth's united defenses and determination, they had not attacked. "Do you think this peace will last?" Hana asked, joining him at the window. "I don't know," Jiho admitted. "But today, we demonstrated something important to the galaxy. Humans shouldn't be underestimated. We were hunting our invaders long before they knew we existed." He looked out at the red planet where former enemies now worked to build a new home. "And we're smart enough to know when to stop hunting and start helping." Far beyond their solar system, other civilizations watched with interest. Humanity had proven itself to be something unexpected, a species capable of turning predators into prey, yet wise enough to offer mercy when victory was assured. In the calculus of galactic powers, Earth had just become a force to be approached with caution. The end.